So last week I made a video talking about all of the ways that the Steam Deck, and by extension the Steam platform, has disrupted my console play and habits. And while I think a lot of the points that I made in that video were fair, I also don't think it tells the whole story necessarily, because the Steam Deck and Steam haven't just detracted from my time with the Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo Switch, but it's also added a lot of value to those console gaming experiences in ways that I didn't really fully expect. So that's what today's video is all about, is I did want to spend a little bit of time talking about the positive ways that Steam and the Steam Deck have enriched my gaming experience when it comes to console gaming, and actually pushed me back towards those experiences in a few unexpected ways. And right off the bat, one of the ways that I would say the Steam Deck has had a positive impact on my gaming outside of its platform is that it has clued me into more physical releases that I might have otherwise overlooked. Now don't get me wrong, I think the Steam Deck is an absolute beast when it comes to indie releases, but a lot of the time those indie releases also get physical releases, and I probably would not even be aware of them had it not been for the Steam Deck first introducing me to them. Then I go to do more research on it whenever I actually go to make these videos and talk about those experiences I had on the Steam Deck, and when I do that, I usually end up finding that a lot of those games do get physical releases and at a price that won't break the bank on the PlayStation 5, Xbox, or Nintendo Switch. And one specific example that I can think of this would be when Wanted Dead came to Steam, where I thought I was definitely going to enjoy it there, but then I found out there actually was a physical copy of that available, and a collector's edition no less, so I went ahead and made a purchase of that for the PlayStation 5 so I could just further support the developers. And sometimes, even though there are experiences that I can get on the Steam Deck either natively or through emulation, there's still some merit to playing it on the big screen in my living room and couch mode anyways. Such was the case when I actually went to look up some older PlayStation 2 emulation footage for a video I did a couple of years back on the channel, and while I was doing that, I actually looked up some God of War 2 footage from where I was playing it on the Steam Deck, and while the experience was good, there was one weird graphical hiccup I hit where when underwater, you would have these weird lines on the screen. And in turn, that led me to go ahead and fire up God of War 2 on the PlayStation 3 the other night, and I got sucked into it for about 3 hours and had a great time revisiting it, and I'm not sure that I would have gotten there had it not been for reviewing that old footage on the Steam Deck, so in like a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon sort of way, the Steam Deck is indirectly responsible for me going back to a game that is almost 20 years old at this point. And I would say that another way Steam sort of pushes me back towards console gaming every now and then is it does prod me to sort of double dip in the opposite direction now and again. Normally when I double up on gaming purchases between platforms, it almost always starts on console first, and then I will buy something on Steam if I really enjoy the game, so I can experience it portably on the Steam Deck or at greater visual fidelity if I want to play it on my actual gaming rig. For example, with games like Horizon Zero Dawn, or Spider-Man, or God of War 2018, those started on PlayStation and then found their way to my Steam library later. However, I have found that the more time I spend with Steam, and by extension the Steam Deck, that kind of the reverse is happening, where what will happen is I'll find a ton of great games either in demo form or I'll grab something on sale, check it out, and then I'll feel compelled to pick up a physical copy on console. And that's for a couple of different reasons. One, sometimes you can just straight up find the physical copy cheaper, such was the case with Slitterhead, where I was going to grab that during the spring sale but decided not to because there were other games that I wanted to pick up, and while that game runs for about $50, I actually found that I could get a discounted physical copy that came with an art book and a Akira Yamaoka's soundtrack from Amazon for about $35. And beyond the fact that you can just sometimes find a raw deal on a physical copy of a game that happens to also be on the Steam Marketplace, it's also nice to kind of have a physical copy in my library so I can lend it out to friends who might not be PC gamers, which is something I really enjoy. And of course there are games that I can't play on Steam at all, at least not without jumping through some emulation hoops like first-party Switch titles for example, and the more time that I spend with the deck, the more I become keenly aware of those gaps in my gaming experiences that I'm just going to have to seek out elsewhere. And I would say another big reason to seek out games physically on a console platform versus Steam, even though I love consolidating my digital games there, is that games can get delisted on Steam, and it's just not immune to that. And we've seen this happen before with games like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Deadpool, and one of the more recent ones that I can think of would be Forza Horizon 4, which is a game I was going to feature as a recommendation for the Steam Spring Sale, and then I found that it was no longer on the marketplace, having been delisted in December 2024. And that's one of the nice things about owning those physical copies, is it pretty much guarantees that I won't lose access, unless that copy degrades due to something like disk rot or something, but you know what I mean. Whenever things aren't available digitally, it is nice to have a physical backup copy. So for games that I really love or I think may be at risk being lost on a digital platform, it only makes sense to go ahead and seek out a physical copy to hold on to. But beyond protection against delistings, there is something to be said for actually owning your games instead of just having access to a license to play those games. Don't get me wrong, I love my Steam library, but the nice thing about physicals is that you can display them, you can lend them out to friends, and if you have a situation where you no longer have internet connectivity, you can generally still play those games. Again, barring something like disk rot or something else that compromises the physical integrity of your media. But beyond the merits of physical media and how the Steam Deck helps me remember and recognize those gaps in my gaming collection when it comes to being a multi-platform gamer, I did want to talk a little bit about a digital portion of console gaming, specifically with Xbox's Game Pass and cloud streaming, because I feel like I gave Xbox a pretty hard time in that last video, but the truth is I have to give them props. Game Pass cloud streaming is amazing and I love doing it on the Steam Deck. Not just because it lets me sample the latest and greatest, but it also allows me to be a little bit more deliberate about my Steam purchases and really check out a game before I plunk down full price for it, or decide that I'm going to install the whole thing locally on my Xbox and eat up potentially like 100 gigabytes of space, perhaps unnecessarily, if a game's just not going to be that great. With Xbox Cloud Streaming, you can get that set up on your Steam Deck in about 5 minutes of work. After that, you can fire up whatever game you want just to see if it really works for you, and if so, you can go ahead and save your file and it'll keep it synced to the cloud for you. And if it's not to your liking, no big deal. It's not like you plunked down a bunch of dough for a full price purchase, and you didn't waste a bunch of time downloading a gigantic game and eating up a bunch of space for the privilege. This is exactly what I did with Avowed recently, because I wasn't sure if Avowed was going to be a great Steam Deck performer, or if it would really be a game that I would like that much after some of the reviews that I saw, but I was able to check it out through Xbox Cloud Streaming, had a great time, and went ahead and did the full install on my Xbox Series X. And again, I don't think I would have gotten to this place had I not been able to just use the Steam Deck to quickly sample it for a little bit, make sure that I liked it, and then make a bigger commitment. But now let's shift away from physical game considerations that the Steam Deck reminds me of, or the convenience of cloud streaming, to the Steam Deck to help me make more informed decisions, and talk about retro gaming for a second. Because the more time I spend on Steam, and as I see more games come out with retro flair, like Quake, or Doom, or the Castlevania collection, or any number of other retro titles that get repackaged for the Steam platform, it really does remind me of just how deep my roots go when it comes to older games. And while I certainly enjoy playing them for the convenience of the Steam Deck, it does make me want to seek out original hardware and have the authentic experience where those games first debuted. But beyond the Steam Deck just reminding me of the merits of a nostalgia experience on authentic original hardware, it also practically pushes me that way because of emulation shortcomings now and again. Now, don't get me wrong, emulation on the Steam Deck is amazing, and I really love having just hundreds of childhood classics at the ready at any given moment. However, there are times when emulation doesn't do that great. Not every title is going to perform flawlessly because some games just emulate better than others. A personal example I have was when I tried to play Silent Hill Origins from the PSP on the Steam Deck. I had some lighting issues there. Also, the aforementioned God of War 2 weird lines that I had when I was in the underwater segments in the opening level. And while I know there are a lot of people out there enjoying PS3 emulation on the Steam Deck, that's a pretty hard console to emulate, and I honestly just had more frustrations with it than anything, which in turn led me to actually buy a refurbished PS3 Slim the other day from GameStop and check it out, and I had a great time doing so. And I think without the Steam Deck reminding me of those experiences periodically, or just because of emulation hiccups steering me towards those experiences so I can play in the best possible way, I just don't think I'd be revisiting those retro experiences quite so often. So yes, while the Steam Deck definitely disrupted my console habits in a not insignificant way, it also added to them as well. From buying more physical games to just a renewed appreciation for classic consoles, it's not that the Steam Deck has just replaced my time spent with console gaming, but it's also allowed me to appreciate those even more. But hey, what about you? Are there any positive ways that the Steam Deck has added to your love of console gaming? I know a lot of you left comments last week explaining ways that you echoed the same sentiment and found that the Steam Deck had also disrupted your time with the PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo, but I am curious to see if you had any positive impacts in the other direction. If so, please let me know in the comments below, because I would love to hear your thoughts on this. As far as what's coming up on the channel, next week we'll be looking at some Steam games coming down the pike in April, and naturally I'm already hard at work on the next episode of Twist, which should be out next Saturday. But that's it for this one. As always, thank you so much for your time and watching videos here on the channel. It really means a lot to me. Have an amazing day, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.